And welcome to Freshly Grounded.
Alhamdulillah, we have Hamza Tzortzis in the building. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So last time we were here, you were like head of IERA. Is that still the case?
CEO, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. What's the difference between being like the head and the CEO? You're the head.
Well,
the
it depends what the head means. I mean,
you're the top guy.
Well, the top guy will probably be the chairman and the board. So they're my bosses, right?
Okay.
The board. But as the CEO, the chief executive officer, I have the responsibility of ensuring that I implement our strategy, that we have the right operations in place and the processes and procedures in place in order for us to fulfill our charitable objects. And our charitable objects is based on our vision, and our vision is a world reconnected to God. And we believe that the strategic focus we must adopt for that to happen is to develop, empower, and support Muslims in achieving that aim. So we call them outreach specialists, for example. So if we support them, and we've grown a hell of a lot since I saw you last. We've got full-time outreach specialists in Bahrain, Malaysia, Philippines, Mexico,
that's mad,
Honduras, Bolivia, America, UK, and it's growing and growing. So and that's the strategy that we believe in, because if you really refine the individual, the human being, you give them an Islamic shakhsiyah, an Islamic personality, they have integrity and authenticity and rahmah and compassion, and they know the religion in a way that they can convey it with compassion and reason locally and abroad, that person now will be motivated enough to fulfill your vision, which is a world reconnected to God. So with the individual comes podcasts, for example. With the individual comes other charitable organizations. With the individual comes other publications and materials. With the individual comes YouTube channels. With the individual comes projects and outreach tables and all of these amazing things. So instead of you doing those projects yourself, you inspire the individual to be motivated enough to have the right knowledge to go through our educational pathway, which takes a long time and it has multiple levels. But once you do that, we would either hire you because you're the cream, or you're motivated and empowered enough to go out there in the world on your own to create effective change. And that's exactly what we need. So for example, and we also do this by headhunting certain people. So we had 15 of the leading imams in Canada, from Sheikh Allah to Sheikh so-and-so. They were leading massive masajid from Kitchener to Toronto. I think we covered the influential base that can access around 90% of the Muslim community in Canada alone. We paid for the flights, the accommodation and food, and we stuck them in the room for around 9 days or so. It was like intellectual and theological and spiritual hell and back. It was amazing. It was moments of tears, moments of, eureka moments. It was paradigm shifts, arguments, but at the end we all hugged each other and loved each other, and they all had post-education plans in order for them to implement what they learned, which is really conveying Islam with compassion and reason all around the world.
Well, I do want to go into that, because I know that most prominently in my head is that you recently went to Japan and you did some IERA stuff there. And I was very jealous when I saw it, because I was like, wow, this looks like they're doing some amazing work, having an amazing time, and they're able to kind of do all of this. And kind of carry on their work out there. But before we go into that, what I was going to say when I asked, you're the head of IERA, the CEO, I was going to say, do you enjoy your job? Like because you had that we spoke a bit about your job last time, but I didn't say like what is it like? Like, do you enjoy it? Do you go to work? Are you happy to go to work, or does it feel like a job?
No, it doesn't feel like a job. We try and create culture that it's not a job. You don't clock in and clock out. It's part of who you are. So for example, we just had a new finance assistant, Sister Sadia, and basically I just wanted to say to her, look, you have a really important role, because our vision is a world reconnected to Allah, a world reconnected to God. And when people ask you, what do you do in IERA, you should say, I am achieving the vision of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is a world reconnected to God. And the way I do that is by taking into account everyone in the office, and in the organization to ensure our finances are in line with our ethics. Because if we're not in line with our ethics and our charitable objects, we're going to fail, because we don't have integrity, we don't have authenticity, we don't have transparency, and we're wasting ummah's money. So we try and create a culture in the office, for example. If you bend an outreach material, a booklet about God or why he deserves worship, if you bend it and it can't be reused, you're taking money from your own pocket, sir, madam, and you're putting it in the box and giving it back to the charity because you're responsible. I mean, we got so extreme that we were worried about whether elastic bands would be put. You know, sometimes you find an elastic band in the corner of a dirty corner with all dust on it, and you may find it in a Hoover. Like, it got a bit crazy to the point where, like, we may have to take that elastic band out, clean it, and put it back into the cupboard, right? Because that wasn't your money, that's ummah's money. Because this is very serious, because, you know, the famous hadith about someone who misappropriated charitable funds, or funds that came from different sources, and misappropriating them, that could lead to the nar, the fire, right? And this is huge. This is the same thing with charitable money. So she has a huge role. And that role is going to facilitate spiritual barakah. It's going to facilitate the right processes and the right finances, so in order for us to fulfill our vision. So I want everyone within the organization to think like that. And inshallah, a lot do anyway. Like, they travel like crazy. Like, Brother Sabur Ahmed, may Allah bless him.
Ameen.
He's gone to Hajj, right? And he's coming back from Hajj. And you know, you get Hajj flu. I don't know if you've been to Hajj before, but when you come back from, may Allah make you go Hajj next year, bro.
Ameen.
And give you accepted Hajj.
Ameen.
Yeah? You and your family.
Ameen.
So when he's going to come back, you get Hajj flu. The day after, I believe, he's going to a 6 or 7 Latin America tour to take our outreach specialists there from Honduras and Mexico, train them on how to go to other countries to convey Islam with compassion and reason.
And what does that entail? I'm really interested in that.
That entails,
Do an outreach
some
specialist.
people think, oh, Hamza, you go around the world, you guys go around the world, it must be a great time. Well, you know what? The 2 days before I travel, I get in depressed mode.
Okay.
You just don't want to travel, bro. If you have a family, you have children, and you're in your zone at work, you're doing your policies, or you're doing all this kind of glorified admin stuff, you don't want to travel the world. Because after a few times, bro, it's not that kind of amazing, wow, this is amazing. It goes, right? So you really have to refocus and link yourself back to your vision and your strategy. I want a world reconnected to God. I want to convey Islam with compassion and reason. You have to really internalize that. And then you prepare yourself and like, right, I'm going to get on that plane. So you get on the plane and it's very busy. You know, when we went to Japan, I think we missed lunch like a few days in a row. I mean, it's not a big deal, of course, but it's not like, oh, you know, you're out there having a jolly. Because when we go to other countries, it's multi-layered. We're not there just giving talks. That's very shallow. Who's going to go to another country just to give talks? Might as well speak to them on Skype. But you're there dealing with stakeholders, having meetings with influentials, with Muslims and non-Muslims. You're dealing with other organizations. You don't want to sound like you're a charity from the UK stepping on people's toes, because that's not our job. We just want to fill the gap. We want to support and empower and develop.
Support and empower other organizations and stuff?
If it's organizations, that may be the case, but usually our focus is on individuals, right?
How do you find these individuals?
You have meetings.
Who are these individuals?
And you get them involved in your projects and your campaigns. Like, for example, let me take Japan as an example. We went to Japan. What did? We fed about 500 homeless people, right? We had meetings with various masajid, with various... We gave talks at various masajid and Islamic organizations. We did a dawah training course, right?
Okay.
An outreach training course on how to convey Islam with compassion and reason. We had meetings with influential leaders. We translated a material about making sense of God in the Japanese language, which is very hard to do, by the way. Japanese language has like 4 different levels of Japanese, you know. So we translated that material, we distributed it, and all of these amazing things that we do. So we had a meeting with one brother called Salman Sugimoto. He's a revert to Islam, did a master's, has traveled the Muslim world as well, has been trained by other organizations to articulate Islam. He's been involved in some of our projects previously. He had good references from other key leading members of Japan. So what we said to ourselves was, you know, this is someone that we may want to hire as an outreach specialist. So we had a meeting with him, you know, took him through all took him through the process. And then now he's our full-time outreach specialist in Japan.
We did speak about your book last time, The Divine Reality. And we were saying it's available on Amazon. But since then, I think it wasn't available as a ebook then, was it?
It is. It's on Kindle. It's also on. You can get it from Book Depository, and you can get it from Wordery and other outlets.
But you've revised
But
it
we've
now?
just got revised edition.
Okay.
So the revised edition is currently only available in Book Depository and Wordery, which they have online outlets that you can order from. Amazon are still going through some of the old stock, I believe. But I think it should be ready in the next few weeks on Amazon as well. The Kindle revised edition is already ready. So I spent a lot of time in Ramadan and just before just to get a revised edition, which is, adding a few more contentions, clarifying certain arguments, fixing the sentence structure, some of the typos, and fixing some of the way I explain some of the points. So I'm really happy with it now. So I'm going to go and do a really big marketing campaign in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to use some of your services as well, mashallah, for that.
Mashallah. Right, well, yeah. What kind of things are you going to be doing?
Well, I'm going to
Are you
go
going on a book tour?
What's it called? Is it called Feed Source?
Oh, Feed Source?
Yeah, I'm going to
No, I'll say
I'm going to use Feed Source. Also, I'm...
Definitely not Feed Source.
Well, a lot of it I'm going to do videos.
Okay.
I'm also going to basically do a lot of like snippets on Facebook, maybe some Facebook Lives. I'm going to do some readings. And I'm just going to keep on promoting it because it's still a book of its kind. And I'm not saying in an arrogant way. It's just a gap in our articulation of Islam. There isn't a book on that level that articulates, why Allah deserves to be worshipped, the truthfulness of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the existence of God, and all these other amazing things in the English language. We still don't have one. So I feel it's an ethical duty, and not just that, it's a duty from the point of view of worshipping Allah, that we want to articulate Islam in a compassionate and rational way. And for me, I spent years writing this book, and my marketing has been awful. I've done nothing about it really. I just let it to be quite organic. But since doing the revised version, I'm much more happy with it, and I'm thinking, you know what, it's not about me. It's about the masses, because there's a lot of youth, bro. They still have a lot of doubts, intellectual, spiritual doubts. We still have challenges from other worldviews, and I think this book does the job.
Have you considered doing an audio book version of it?
I have, yeah. It would take me 16 days to do so I have to find full 16 days.
Yeah, well, you have 16 days in a row.
Not really, but assumingly it would take you a day a chapter. Now, why do I say a day a chapter? It takes you about an hour or half an hour to read a chapter. But reading over it, sometimes you did some mistakes.
Reading it clearly, yeah.
Reading clearly. So I'm going to do an audiobook, inshallah. That was part of the plan.
Yeah, you have to, man.
Yeah.
So you're co-authoring a book right now. You're writing and co-authoring a book, and it's called The Failed Hypothesis.
The Failed Hypothesis.
What's that about?
Well, The Failed Hypothesis is a bunch of essays written by myself and Sabur Ahmed on things to do with the Darwinian mechanism, things to do with the philosophy of science, things to do with first principles and what is the Islamic metaphysical view of the world, which is in line with the Quran and Sunnah. So the concept of the fitrah, the fact that we have primary knowledge within us already, and that we just have to awaken the truth within. What is this concept? How do you awaken the truth within? What is the concept of certainty in Islam? Sometimes we adopt a kind of alien philosophical view on certainty, as if certainty is going to be this algorithm, and all of a sudden you have iman, you have faith, A plus B therefore C. This is blameworthy. Even Al-Ghazali, who was known for his philosophical writings, he was known for his book Tahafut al-Falasifa, the incoherence of the philosophers. He even said iman, faith, is not based on some kind of deductive argument, and all of a sudden you have this kind of spiritual intellectual certainty. He even called that a bid'ah. He called it a innovation. There's something else going on, and there are levels of certainty. So what does certainty mean in Islam? Do we start with a form of knowledge, or is it a blank slate? Allah didn't create you in a blank slate, bro. He created you with a fitrah, with an innate disposition, with primary knowledge, to acknowledge his divine power and wisdom, and therefore to praise him and to worship him. That gets clouded over time per the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih Muslim. How do you uncloud that to awaken the truth within? Having that metaphysic makes you understand doubts in the correct way, makes you understand yourself and others in the correct way, that no one's intrinsically an enemy anymore. Everyone has this purity within them that your job is to help awaken. That is the role of the Muslim, bro. Not to refute and to hate on, but to awaken something within that person that they already have, which is knowledge of Allah and the fact that He deserves worship. That's the role of the Muslim. That's how we should interact with our brothers and sisters in humanity, to help them awaken the truth within. And that's how the Prophet ﷺ was. So And so those things, and we talk about the Darwinian mechanism. People get so much confusion about Darwinism. Can we believe in it from a scientific point of view? Can we take it into our aqidah? Can we not? We're saying, well, just learn about the philosophy of science. The Darwinian mechanism is based on PAD, P-A-D. It's based on a probabilistic framework because it's scientific. You may have a future observation that can contradict previous conclusions, so it's not certain in an absolute way. It has its own assumptions, philosophical assumptions. For example, the assumption of gradualism. Read the works of Professor Elliot Sober and many, many others, and Michael Rule's atheists themselves. Darwinian mechanism has assumptions that you can't prove, that it needs to start with in the first place in order to move forward. And it has its own disputes. Don't get me wrong, it's the best thing so far human beings have come up with to explain the data. We can't really deny that. We don't want to look stupid, and we're not stupid. But are you going to take it to your aqidah? Of course not. Yeah. Because it's not based on that type of certainty. Right. So you transcend the debate. Do you see my point? Yeah. It's not a big deal. And that is all about knowing what the philosophy of science is about, right? The usul of science, if you like, yeah? We're going to consciousness because my specialism is on the philosophy of the mind now. Consciousness is a massive thing, bro. Neuroscience claims that it could explain consciousness. No, it cannot in any shape or form, because neuroscience is based on a false metaphysical assumption of physicalism, that everything can be reduced to physical things. But when we go into that philosophy and we discuss it, we're like, hey, there's a big issue. And that's why consciousness is going to be a huge recalcitrant fact to the kind of atheistic naturalist, which basically means the one that believes that there's no divine, no supernatural, and everything can be reduced to physical process. So I'll go into that in a lot of detail. And so many other different essays that are going to be useful for people on ISOCs, bro, people at university, because they come with these questions, and we're addressing some of these fundamental questions, like what is certainty, what is the fitrah, how do you awaken the truth within, what is the Darwinian mechanism, is it absolutely true, how do we reconcile it, do we have to reconcile it in the first place, consciousness, this, that, and the other. So there's quite, we even go through Islamic history and how it promoted science as well, the likes of Ibn al-Haytham, who was seen as one of the first key scientists that was about, experimentation and testing, and he was a practicing Muslim, and all of these things. So it's a really, really interesting topic. So we even go through the topic of the so-called scientific miracles in the Quran, and we say that you shouldn't really try and do that because it's epistemologically false to do that in the first place. You've misunderstood what science is in the first place. You've even misunderstood the Quran as well, and the role of ayat, the role of verses that tell you to ponder about man, life, and the universe within yourself. So we give them a better model, which is based on the classical tradition, which is what we call a multi-layered, multi-leveled model, which is the Quran uses a word to describe a natural phenomenon, not in any detailed way, but to point to a direction with the assumption that there is a divine power and wisdom behind it. And when you ponder upon that natural phenomenon in your primitive way or intellectual way, in any way you want, and you could be totally wrong about it, the conclusion would always be that Allah deserves worship. And the interesting thing about the Quran, that it would use words that can address a primitive mindset, 7th century, or even a more of a modern mindset. It doesn't give you any details, there's no miraculousness behind it. But what the miracle is from that point of view, that the Quran has the ability to use words to refer to natural phenomena that can be understood and reflected upon timelessly. That's the power. But
is that not something that you would discuss in the past? The miraculous.
I never really used
the science in the Quran.
Not really. I did maybe once or twice, but then I did a big U-turn.
Okay.
Because it was a forced methodology.
That's of course something that we all do. We grow as we
learn stuff. So it's going to be a really powerful book.
So when is that going to be out?
Ready by the winter.
Okay. Inshallah. Ready by the winter. Inshallah. Hard copy and
hard copy and soft. And this one's going to be free for
everyone.
Sorry,
I meant physical copy and
ebook.
And ebook as well.
It's going to be free for everyone.
Inshallah. Oh wow.
Yeah, free.
Alhamdulillah. We were going to discuss, that me and you spoke over WhatsApp, and there was some points that we looked at. You were telling me some cool stuff that's kind of going on, that's been going on since we last spoke. But however, a lot of them, I just don't understand them. A lot of stuff about, for example, your new finance systems and your risk management systems. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what any of those are.
Basically, that's very simple. That we've developed bespoke IT systems for finance and risk management within the organization. And because we wanted to get software from the outside world, get another supplier. But when we did our assessment and our analysis of what's out there in the world, it wasn't good enough.
Right.
So what we did, we said we'll develop it ourselves, and we basically hired a company to do that for us. That was relatively cheap, and we have amazing finance systems for charity and amazing risk management system for charity, risk management database and software. And what we're going to now do, the next phase is that we're going to start maybe giving that for free to some select charities, and then after maybe selling it so we could get charitable money back.
Okay.
And it was just to show that we're also becoming operationally innovative now. And we want to give best practice back to the charity sector. So for example, we were mentioned by Third Sector, which is the leading not-for-profit publication, because we launched the IRA charity management series. We did one on GDPR. You might know about GDPR. It was basically the General Data Protection Regulation from the EU, and it's new data protection stuff. So we had to basically realign the whole organization to be in line with this new law.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And we gave that webinar, and Muslim and non-Muslim charities attended and benefited along. We gave them free templates and policies, and we want to offer that to people. Recently, I just did one on risk management. So a lot of trustees of charities attended, and you could still go on these podcasts and webinars anyway. You could follow the podcast, the IRA Charity Management Series. So we did one on risk management, which is very important for charities. It's a statutory requirement. So we want to, if we implement something properly, we want to give it back to the world for free. It's good for PR, I'm not going to lie. It's also a PR move because, we want to show that, we're robust, and as a Muslim charitable organization, we're raising the bar, and we're in line with the Charity Commission best practice guidance, all of these amazing things. But also genuinely, we want to help other charities, Muslim and non-Muslim. And I think it's very powerful. So the next one is going to be on safeguarding against extremism, which is it's actually a statutory requirement, especially for charities. And then the one after that might be dignity at work policy. The one after that might be...
I'd love to come to one of these seminars. I'm trying to get myself in.
Well, it's a webinar. So you could actually go to the IRA Charity Management Series and find it. So if you go on the website, or if you go into, I think, iTunes, and you type in IRA Charity Management Series, you could download the audio.
SubhanAllah. So Jazakallah khair for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair for inspiration.
May Allah bless you, man.
Jazakallah khair.
May Allah bless you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Rahmatullah.